Welcome to TPP's Retail Shift, the podcast where we ask retail's leading influencers to put a shift in with TPP and tell us what's on their minds. Today, I'm with Gary Tattersall, the Profit Protection Director at Harding Retail. Hi, Gary.
Hi, James. Thanks for inviting me along.
Great to have you with us. Gary, Harding Retail isn't the most well-known retailer. Tell me about Harding.
Harding, what an exciting retailer it is. So very, very different to anything that I'm used to previously. So I describe it as retailing at sea. So Harding sells everything from Tic Tacs to our customers to jewellery that's £250,000, and it's all done at sea with our cruise line partners. So we've got 300 stores bobbing around, 100 ships in the ocean.
All over the world, right?
Exactly, so a very, very different loss prevention, profit protection proposition when we have to look at how we're protecting those products. So very exciting opportunity.
And also challenging when you're protecting things that range from a Tic Tac to a £250,000 piece of jewellery, right?
Absolutely, so you have to look at that security proposition in a very, very different way. So our cruise line partners don't like CCTV, they don't like EAS gates, they don't like tagging. So we need to look at things very, very differently, and that's where we've linked up with TPP so that we can understand our data and the supply chain and go after our own wins. So not necessarily worrying about external theft as much, but looking at our own process failings and how we can improve those to protect our bottom line.
Fascinating. So tell me, what is profit protection? What does that really mean in a retailer?
Very interesting. I guess you could, different people would answer it in a different way. In my view, profit protection's had to evolve over the years. When I first joined the industry, it was very much about going into a store, whipping up a whirlwind, sack a manager, give someone a disciplinary and leave, and that was considered a successful visit. Thank goodness the industry's changed and it's evolved. Now profit protection, I think, is very much about protecting the bottom line, increasing basket spend, so how do we improve the customer journey, and having a seat around the table. So yes, we can talk about CCTV, there's a place for it, but actually it's about showing your business acumen and having commercial conversations with the business on how you protect that bottom line, but whilst driving sales and having that in the forethought. And I think that's how the industry has moved. Unfortunately, I still think it's got to move further, but we're definitely on the right track to professionalising the industry.
The journey's never finished, right? But the key part is having that seat around the table, I guess. That's a recent progression.
Exactly that. And I think it's about becoming not just a cost to the business, not just a cost centre that's expensive, but what do you return to the business? How do you improve that customer focus, that customer journey? And you've got to be passionate about that to help drive those sales. Everything's about driving sales.
Yeah, and no longer being this necessary evil that just costs money, like you say, but suddenly is a real benefit and something on the bottom line.
Exactly.
And something to invest in.
Yeah, and I think that investment has to come by picking the right partners that can help you on that journey. So for me, how do we as a department become more proactive than reactive? And it's about using that different technology to drive efficiencies throughout the business. So again, not just waiting for somebody to steal something, reacting to it and to go and deal with it, but how do we take all of that data and how do we analyse the data so that it drives our action? So I always talk about not wanting my team to chase rainbows. How can they be proactive, identify the right ships, the right areas that we need to go after? And that can only be done with technology and with the right partners to give you that visibility on the end-to-end supply chain.
It's fascinating. So tell me about your career prior to Harding. What have you done that's taken you to where you are today?
Yes, it's an interesting one. It's one I don't normally like to share with people. So my career, early days, I was a police officer. Just because you're a police officer doesn't make you a good LP or profit protection professional. But there's lots of people out there that have taken this path. Became disillusioned with the police and ended up working for Wilkinson's as a regional manager and learning my trade. And then from there, taking my first director role with a company called Jack Wills, where I was responsible for rolling out globally their RFID program. That's really where I started to understand the nuances within the profit protection world of not being reactive, but being very proactive, looking after your inventory, knowing where your products are, making sure that they're in the right place at the right time so you can generate sales. If you shop like me and you want this in a medium, he says, but in a large and you haven't got it, I'm going to walk out of that store and I'll go somewhere else. So it's really, really important that retailers understand their file accuracy. And again, it can only be done with the right partners that give you that visibility. Where some retailers are reporting file accuracy of 60% on the high street, that's shocking. Right? Net, you might be okay, but again, if you want this in a particular size, in a particular colour, and you haven't got it, it's no good. You miss that sales opportunity. You miss that opportunity to interact with a customer and to upsell them. I'm going to buy this pair of jeans, sell me a belt as well. It's basic retailing, but you must know where your product is. And this is the change between profit protection and loss prevention, whatever you want to call it. The function is the same. We need to move away from being that reactive, just talking about EAS gates. Let's start talking about how we have a voice around the table and help make those commercial decisions.
I think as a consumer, it's difficult even to understand that retailers have this problem. You would feel as a consumer, obviously the retailer knows what their stock is and where, but you just said 60%, right?
There are definitely some retailers out there that have very, very poor file accuracy and high shrink as a result of not being able to manage their inventory correctly. Previous retailers that I've worked on, they're great at making product and telling that customer journey, and the stores look amazing, but they're not necessarily good at moving their stock around. That's a completely different skill set. If you start thinking about stock accuracy of 60%, you do a stock take twice a year, you reset your file, it's 100%, and then each week it's depreciating by 2%. Sales opportunities that you're missing. So yeah, really, really important function.
The days of a once or twice a year stock count must be over, surely, because like you say, it's right once and it starts going wrong almost within the hour or two, right?
And I think that's another evolution of retail, where we just thought we would always count, make a few sales, count again 2 times a year, but it's really important. And I think for me, where it's evolving, and I talk about data, it's about having real-time data that is actionable. And that's what's important. So you need to have a good stock take program, yes. You need to have a good cycle count program. You need to be able to accept your deliveries, as many touch points as you can have, analysing that data and reacting to the situation in real time, not just waiting 6 months. If I lose my best seller a couple of weeks after my stock take, it might take me 6 months to realise. You would hope it would be before, but essentially it could be an out of stock for a long time. So those programs are really, really important to help, as I said, drive sales, improve that customer experience. Every message I have with my team is about how do we improve that customer interaction and the experience they have within our retail environment. I don't want to be a problem. I don't want to add friction. I don't want to talk about horrible EAS gates or EAS tags on my products. There's other things I can do first to help that journey.
Yeah, and I think we've gone from a time when the stock count was for a finance function, and it was for a balance sheet, it was an audit thing, into a time when the retailer sees real value in having the stock available and can get money out of it, can get sales.
For sure, yeah, and obviously you still have those financial requirements that you need to comply with, but it's almost, for me, that's a secondary point. What can I do with that data? And whilst I'm here at a show like this today, I'm trying to find solutions that can help me understand my data and can help drive those actions. That's what's important.
And if we think about Harding specifically, when your shops are moving, bobbing around in the sea, as you said, it's so tough, because if you don't know what the stock is, it's potentially weeks till you can restock.
Yeah, and having that visibility in your supply chain is really emphasised in a moving target. And what I mean by that is, if I'm a retailer on the high street, I get an out of stock, I can send a person in a van and I can probably restock the next day. The problem we have is that we might have a ship that's at sea for 30 days, and so you can't replenish it. So it's, again, really important that we understand that supply chain, that we have true visibility within the supply chain to make sure that the stores remain well stocked.
You and I spent some time on one of your ships last year, and it blew my mind, the intensity of you just get a few hours, right? And to get everything off and on the ship, that process of restocking your stock, it's so intense.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about how it's done and the time frames that it's done in, and the confines of the space. Boats aren't big, but it's one of the nuances. At the end of the day, though, we need to simplify it. We are a retailer. We have 4 walls, we have stock, and we have customers. So it's exactly the same as retailing on land. but with, as I said, a few nuances and a few extra challenges.
Just that little bit tougher, right?
Exactly that, yeah.
But we've seen the impact you've had at Harding, right? You've made huge strides forward in the last year or two.
Yeah, and I think that's, for me, it's really important. We talk about influencing within the business, and that's my role. My role is to work with finance, is to work with operations and all of the other departments to take them on this journey. Another big part for me is focusing on our suppliers, making sure that we've got the right suppliers that understand who we are, understand my vision, and they're able to take that and give me the right solution. And without a doubt, ours is one of the biggest success stories that we've had. We've halved our stock loss, we've improved our file accuracy, we're looking in ship shape without using terrible puns. But it's been a really exciting 2 months journey, one that was very daunting at the beginning, but by having that right partner, I feel like I'm doing a sales pitch for you, but it's very genuine in the how you've helped me on that journey, and you've made it far easier than it could have been.
I remember at the start, you guys had this desire to do a transformation, and it's really nice to see that just 18 months on, I think Harding genuinely have transformed.
Yeah, we have, and it's been exciting, but it's also exciting that we don't want to stand still. So we now have that visibility within the supply chain. All of those metrics have moved significantly, our percentage, our pound notes, all going in the right direction. As I said, I don't want to stand still. So now I'm already looking at what is the next part of this journey. AI, data, RFID are all things that are now high on the agenda. And hopefully we'll be having discussions about that soon on how we can deliver those projects.
You said RFID, that's been a hot topic for years and years. Is this year RFID's year?
I think I've been playing with RFID now for, 10 years. And every year you listen to various providers and they always tell you, this is the year, this is the tipping point. But without a doubt, you have to look at, there are many retailers out there that are using RFID. I think it's proven. We can put a tag on most products now and we can read it. I think the question is, what do you do with that data? For me, everything comes back to the data. One of the projects I was involved in when I rolled out RFID globally was one of the fallbacks was the amount of data that we got and how enriched with data we became, that we were almost overwhelmed with the data and we didn't know how to process it. I truly believe RFID is here to stay. We've just got to find the right use cases, and it's definitely something beneficial for retailers to get involved in.
And if we think of overwhelmed with data, that's what AI is for, right? So actually right now, maybe the combination of AI to analyse and help you determine the next actions of your RFID data, maybe that's going to make the difference?
Yeah, I think it will, because you'll be able to get those insights quicker. And I think if we can use technology to interrogate that data for us and to help drive those actions, it means you become a really powerful asset within the business. Again, that's the involvement of profit protection, loss prevention, and how we're going to be adding value in the future as I see it.
There's a lot of AI hype at the moment, but actually this feels like a real use case that has got real tangible benefit.
I hope so. This is something I've now been playing with the last 6 months. There's a lot for me to learn. Again, need a partner to help me with it because it's not my skill set. But certainly within my team and the large data sets that we deal with, we're driving efficiencies internally within the profit protection team, within the inventory control teams. We're getting better visibility all the time. So again, we're not chasing those rainbows. And that's really important.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting. So Gary, thank you for coming to see us today. It's been great to spend some time with you. And I'm sure we'll see you later on.
Pleasure. Thanks, James.
Gary.